I thought we should focus on Apple for a minute because it has so many issues all of a sudden. It feels like they've bubbled to the surface around AI. They've had the executive change as it relates to that, continued China concerns, et cetera. We're worried about tariffs and everything else, it would seem. Steve Kovac joins us now. Maybe one of those issues is going to get resolved or at least take a step forward soon?
Potentially, Scott. So let's talk about Apple and China here, because that is really weighing things down. We talk about American exceptionalism. Sure, Apple's an exceptional American company, but it's got this noose around its neck with China here. And look, Tim Cook out there in China ahead of this anticipated Apple Intelligence launch in the country, possibly next month or more likely in May. Also, late last night, Apple held a virtual session for Chinese developers where they walked them through Apple Intelligence tools. Still no indication when they're going to be available for Chinese users. But look, this trip is coming at a real pivotal time for China. Sales were down 11% in the December quarter, way off the highs of what they used to do in the country. And the business has been struggling to grow basically since Huawei started selling competing phones again in China a few years ago. Let me put this all in perspective. Apple did nearly $24 billion in sales in China in that big December quarter in 2022. It was $18.5 billion that same period last year. And we all know Apple whiffed on that big AI upgrade to Siri that was supposed to launch this spring, delayed at least until next year, possibly 2027. It's going to make Apple Intelligence a much tougher sell to those Chinese consumers. Only those minor features so far. A bright spot, though, you're looking for some bright spots, Scott. Government subsidies. Those are going to be applicable to smartphones that could give Apple's business a smaller boost this quarter. Cook actually kind of hinted on this the last earnings call that he expects government stimulus to help move more iPhones this March quarter. They also found that local AI partner in Alibaba for the launch of Apple Intelligence. And in the meantime, Cook's playing the diplomat over there in China, saying all the things he needs to say on this trip. He praised DeepSeek's AI model, which of course was developed in that country, also announcing some investments in clean energy and education. All of this, though, with the backdrop of the looming trade war between the U.S. and China. And we know that might get worse on April 2nd, so-called Liberation Day next week, Scott.
Yeah, Steve, thank you very much for that, Steve Kovac. I mean, people have been drinking a lot of haterade around Apple of late. You own the stock.
Yeah, but I think this is all about, whether you hate it or love it, in the stock market, it's about AI right now. You know, this stock has had a rally for 10 months since the Worldwide Developer Conference last June. The stock was well below $200. It then shot on the AI news that came out then up to $260. And since it's backed off again on AI news, on the delay to AI. Now today, you've got a nice little rally. It's actually been about a 2 or 3 day rally on the news in China. So this is all about AI. And when I distill this down, they are behind in AI. Will they catch up? Of course they will. Of course they will. But it still seems like it's a little ways off. And as far as the China news, look, I just, as an observer in the world, as well as an investor, any investment thesis that has China as sort of the central growth story right now is, to me, a little suspect because of the trade war. It's just that sometimes you just distill this business down to its simplest elements. If my investment thesis is primarily on China, I'm not that comfortable right now. That's why I'm underweight the stock.
I understand, but I mean, you represent, and that view represents what people have long held about this stock and why it was elevated for as long as it was, despite a premium valuation and less than premium fundamentals, the benefit of the doubt. You said it twice. Of course they will. Will they get it right? Of course they will. Well, now it's a show me story.
Yeah, you know what, thanks. I just want to add something tangential but related, okay? The stock now trades at roughly a 30 times multiple. That's still growth. You might call it GARPy, but what it doesn't do is get the crossover value investor. Yes, there are a few of us in the world left, okay? I'm looking at Steffi, thanks. You know, but if you look at an Alphabet right now, 20 times, what's Meta, Steffi? 20 times forward earnings, whatever. NVIDIA, 25 times earnings, 20 times next year's with a 50% growth rate. Those are stocks that can get crossover value investors. Apple, Scott, remember 15 years ago this stock traded at 11 times earnings? That drew in value investors that then propelled it higher. If you look over the last 15 years, stock's been from one end, the lower left of the chart, to the upper right. I just don't see that crossover investor coming into Apple right now.
Amazon is cheaper than Apple, though, and you get better growth for Amazon. Probably almost all the other Mag 7s. That's the only problem, right?
Amen, sister.